Paralog 6, Herbal Remedy. Kaze asks his daughter Midori to bring him dragon herbs, but they are stolen by an adventurer named Candace. Kaze and company pursue her to recover the herb.
Hup, 2, 3, 4, hup, 2, 3, 4.
Help me! Shut up! Huh?
What are you doing?
What?
Nuh-uh.
What's that?
Huh?
Go! Midori.
Father.
Ah!
Thanks a bunch. Oh, yes.
Huh?
No way. Eh? Well, the fact is... Well... what? Leave it to Candace. Well, the fact is... Facts again? Nuh-uh. No, wait!
In accordance with the opening cutscene, this mission puts us on a merry little chase through the woods. Our quarry is Candace, a level 14 adventurer carrying Midori's dragon herbs. She will run along the trail south, then east, then north, then west, north, and east again to the exit. When we defeat her, the mission is over. Of course, just like last time, we don't want to do that too quickly. We're here for experience, and because this is an all routes paralog, there's a lot of that to be had. Luckily, Candace is a lot easier to manage than the adventurer boss on Shigure's paralog. She only tries to run away. She won't ever attack unless we completely block her progress toward the northeastern corner of the map. Because she only has a 2-range weapon, and there are multiple 1-tile-wide choke points on the trail, it's very easy to stop her and hold her in place as long as we wish. The other enemies on the map are an amalgam of Norian classes. We have the classic paladins, berserkers, and sorcerers, a few adventurers, a strategist, and a handful of generals. We even get to see some wyvern lords and a very rare enemy Malignite. Happily for us, the flying enemies are placed very sparsely, so they're not too much of a problem. Our only real challenge will be to isolate Candace from her escorts. Once we do that, this mission should be pretty simple. We're bringing an eclectic group of units. Kaze is mandatory, of course. We're also bringing Leo, his girlfriend Felicia, and his girlfriend's sister Flora. Arthur is due for a promotion. In a vacuum, Bow Knight is clearly the better class for him, but we're going to choose Adventurer. If Arthur would continue to see deployment after this mission, he wouldn't stay in a bow class. He'd change back to an axe-wielding class like Berserker or Great Knight. The skill he can get at level 5 in Adventurer, Lucky 7, is very helpful for those classes. Bow Knight's Rally skill isn't, not for the unit who has it anyway.
Show me what you've got!
Also ready for a class change is Keaton. If he wants to pass down any skills at all to his daughter, he needs to get out of Wolfsegner. Since he's already married, he can use a partner seal to dip into the Archer class tree. Hinchy Knight would be great for mobility, and it would be the far better choice for at least one map and maybe more coming up in the campaign. However, mirroring his friend Arthur, Keaton will choose the class that gives him a great accuracy boosting skill. He could theoretically bring Certain Blow to the Berserker class or back to his native Wolfsegner. We're deploying Niles and Nyx as well. They're both carrying Master Seals, but they're not quite ready to promote. Our aim is to maximize their total experience gain across all the combat they do, and for that particular purpose, it is best to wait until level 20. A few of the kids round out the squad. Percy acts as a much-needed second flyer with utility in the form of rally defense. He can team up with Soleil, who, having learned Soul by now, is also prepared to change classes. Soleil has 5 different Heart Seal choices. We are interested in the last 2, Master Ninja and Mechanist. This choice is mainly down to stats because neither of them has a good skill at level 5. I find that at least at this stage, Soleil typically has the speed she needs without choosing Master Ninja, whereas Mechanist offers more strength and defense and movement, which are all quite helpful. With Soul and her decent natural bulk, Soleil aspires to be much more of a generalist in combat than Kaze was. Her task here will be to work her way past E-rank and daggers so that she can wield a weapon capable of triggering Soul. Our last deployment slot goes to our 3rd flying unit, Shigure. Let's welcome him to the team. Shigure doesn't natively have the greatest stat line or class set for combat. The best thing he has is Darting Blow. That skill would be substantially more helpful if he had a strong, sturdy class to use and wasn't stuck with frail ones like Sky Knight and Troubadour. The best such class that the men in Conquest can normally pass down is the Cavalier version of Great Knight, which is far from great this late in the campaign. And Shigure can't get anything good from friendship or even marriage, really. However, due to the strange machinations of class inheritance and Fire Emblem Fates, Jakob allows Shigure access to Wyvern Rider. Technically not from his dad, but from his mom. That is practically a miracle for Shigure. It gives him the perfect class to change to in Wyvern Lord. He keeps flight and his lance rank and his good speed, at least on player phase, while he gains strength and defense and several useful skills. I just qualified that remark about good speed, but perhaps I should unqualify it. It's true that Shigure's innate bases and growth rates are middling at best, and mixing in Jacob's growths does him no favors. But we've used Azura extensively, and because of that, stat inheritance makes Shigure a huge winner. He's getting a whopping 3 points of speed, all from his mom, plus some strength and skill and luck from her as well. We're actually slightly unfortunate not to be getting 2 strength and 3 skill. With that factored in, Shigure is legitimately fast. Inheriting Voice of Peace from Azura improves his physical bulk too, so Shigure could be a very solid combat unit. Another option is to focus on Shigure's support abilities. After all, his personal skill is a unique rally, one that I think is underappreciated. Perfect Pitch provides a small amount of healing to nearby allies who have lower HP than Shigure. That's not exactly a game changer, but it's not uncommon for 3 or 4 extra points of HP to make the difference in surviving an enemy attack. Since Shigure's rally can affect several allies at once, it often saves you at least one action that you'd otherwise have to spend on healing. Of course, you're spending an action to have Shigure rally in the first place, so Perfect Pitch is not too efficient by itself, but it can become very efficient if you teach him other rally skills as well. We had Jakob pass down rally resistance, and because we're recruiting Shigure after Chapter 20, he can use his Offspring Steel to instantly acquire another useful rally. Rally Speed is an excellent tool that's not very easy to access in Conquest, so it's great that Shigure can grab it more or less automatically. From here, he could go straight to Wyvern Lord, and after just 3 more levels, he'd have Rally Defense too. That's a very good plan, but we're going to hold off on that for a while out of greed. I mean that very literally, we want money. On that note, there's one more new unit to look at, the protagonist of this chapter, Midori. Midori is similar to Shigure in that her stats are not usually all that impressive, not in the concrete offensive or defensive stats anyway. She does have very good skill and luck at least. Midori starts in the Apothecary class, which heavily emphasizes strength and defense, but that means she has to supply her own speed. Midori's innate speed is pretty bad. She does inherit some points from Dad, but Haruka as her mother is doing her no favors in that department, and even a much faster mom still won't usually make a huge difference. Ninja as an innate reclass option can improve the speed situation, but then Midori will have to buff up her strength and defense instead. Just to give an example, a Midori mothered by Camilla, one of the best mothers available, will tend to be about equal to or worse than a Soleil mothered by Selena, a much less impressive mother statistically speaking, in strength, in speed, and defense, even without considering Soleil's personal skill. Unlike Soleil's sisterhood, Midori's personal skill does essentially nothing to improve her combat performance. What it does do is raise the activation rate of skills that trigger based on the luck stat by 20 percentage points. I wouldn't call that an especially notable effect in a normal playthrough of Conquest, but it's going to help us a lot. In fact, Lucky Charm is going to make Midori one of the most important characters to deploy on future missions. But we're getting ahead of ourselves. Midori doesn't have any luck-based skills yet. What she does have is a quartet of good, honest, workmanlike, consistent skills. 2 of those, the skills of the Apothecary class, are totally new to us. They're pretty cool, and we'll see how they work shortly. The other 2 skills are the greatest parts of Midori's inheritance. She gets Trample from her mom and Elbow Room from her dad, so in most combat situations, our Midori will enjoy 8 extra attack. That's excellent. And eventually we will be able to improve her speed quite a bit. So there's a lot to look forward to, even aside from whatever Lucky Charm can give us. Spoiler, it'll give us a lot of cash. We're not able to promote Midori right now because we don't have control of her until we start the battle. So let's get into it. We open by having Corrin pair up with Flora.
I'll watch out for you.
She drops him up near the closest adventurer. At that position, Corrin can support Shigure.
I'm here to help. This is my chance.
Now Keaton can run in and take the kill. But first, he makes Shigure equip the Beast Killer.
Brace for a chip.
Why did we change Shigure's weapon? Well, if you look to the north, both paladins can reach him right now. We don't want Shigure to be attacked by either of them. The one on the left seemingly can only reach Shigure, but that won't be true for long because the Malignite has lunge. He'll be able to lunge Corrin from above, and then Corrin will be in range. Teaming up with Keaton, Arthur shoots the Berserker.
Yeah, I got you. I got this.
Kaze brings Nyx into the battle.
Quickly now.
The Berserker has been weakened to the point that Nyx can transfer Kaze away, then kill using Arthur's Dual Strike. Our Nyx is unusually blessed in magic, so much so that she can do this using fire instead of Nosferatu.
You saved me.
That's the last attack we'll make on turn 1, but there's still more to do. Midori takes a few steps forward to catch up with Arthur, and she takes a bronze bow, our forged javelin, and a resistance tonic from him. That tonic will be important later. When Midori uses her offspring seal, she can choose either Mechanist or Merchant. Mechanist is usually the better class due to its higher speed, and especially its ability to wield daggers. Also, Midori is notable for being the only character in all of Fates who has overlapping promotions in her native class set, regardless of parentage. Apothecary and Ninja both promote to Mechanist. Therefore, if Midori were to choose Mechanist here, she would automatically obtain the skills from the Ninja class with her auto level. That would be great if the Ninja skills were useful, but by and large they aren't, so it's not that big a deal. What is a big deal is instantly learning Profiteer by choosing Merchant. Thanks to Lucky Charm, Midori will now have at least a 42% chance of finding a gold bar on the first 7 turns of each battle. At 300G apiece, that's worth almost 900G every time Midori is deployed, and that value will go up as she levels up and gains more luck. Leo will serve as a decoy for one of the 2 paladins. He can't kill them on the counterattack, and he's frailer than Corrin, so he'll be the preferred target, but only the right-hand paladin can reach him. Together with Soleil, Percy flies over the trees to occupy a choke point near a couple of generals. By dropping Soleil behind him, he gives her a chance to start working on her dagger rank with dual strikes. Strong Riposte just barely allows her to deal scratch damage with those strikes, raising her attack power to 31 against the 28 defense of the generals.
What should we do? Oh, looky! An enemy! Haha, me too! Bring it on! Hey, over here! I'll watch out for you. I'll fight too.
This is my chance.
Leo has a rather annoying 5% crit chance here because the enemy's using a silver weapon, and there's not much we can do about that. Fortunately, a crit from Niles wouldn't be an issue. Keaton will take the first kill again as we try to clear out this western lane. Arthur makes the lethal shot with his dual strike.
Leave it to me. Glory hound.
Corrin moves away immediately, mainly so that we don't accidentally use his dual strike when we don't want to. He stops just barely in range of another Berserker, and he heals himself with a Vulnerary because we won't be able to spare an action with any of our staff-wielding units.
My heart is singing.
Shigure equips a somewhat less lethal weapon to support Midori with. Midori will use the Resistance Tonic right now. Her Quick Salve skill allows her to consume a healing item or a tonic without ending her turn, so she's still able to attack afterward. Potent Potion raises the effectiveness of that tonic by 50%, so it grants 3 res and not just 2.
So strong. No need to go solo.
Shigure now uses Midori's dual strike against the other paladin.
Here's hoping we win! I'll nip this in the bud!
In the name of justice.
Arthur moves just south of Corrin. He passes off Kaze, then together with Corrin, he weakens the right-hand paladin once more. This attack will leave the paladin with 7 HP, just enough to let Niles and Nyx team up for the kill.
How very
For that to work,
annoying.
Nyx just has to equip a scroll that's good against lance enemies. On this occasion, it makes no difference whether Niles gets a crit or not, so why not use our killer bow for once?
Don't die on me.
Why can't I get crits when they'd be fun and cinematic and harmless?
I can support you.
Our next step will be to use Flora to separate Kaze from Corrin.
I'll fight too.
Leo moves up to apply Heartseeker. He can't afford to attack directly, but his dual strike can assist Felicia in weakening the other
Let's
paladin.
go.
Stay on your toes. Concentrate.
My power is at your service.
Nyx will be able to finish off the paladin if she changes Felicia's weapon. Lightning would be the safest choice, but we probably don't want to take the penalty to magic and skill, so we'll use Nosferatu.
All right. Paying attention? Thank you. What now?
Last up are Percy and Soleil. The ideal outcome down here would be for Soleil to weaken one of the generals, and then for Percy to attack for the kill, but with Soleil's dual strike providing the finishing blow. So it seems that we want to reduce the enemy to either 15 or 14 HP. Our Soleil is a little bit weaker than average, so her attack will only deal 11 damage, but we need 13. Since Soleil has no other daggers to use, Percy must equip a bigger axe. We'll have to hope the steel axe doesn't score a crit.
I'm here to help. Champions of Justice.
Adorable outfit. Bonus round!
Neato!
I can protect you. I can. Hey, over here!
You're no match for us! Need a hand?
One unfortunate problem here is that there's a chance that the generic adventurer accompanying Candace may occupy the spot 3 tiles east of the first Dragon King, the spot the Berserker went to. That would have forced a reset, since we wouldn't be able to clear the Berserker and Adventurer properly without becoming too exposed to the Sorcerer. Fortunately, it doesn't matter which spot the Berserker chooses, since we have the means to force him into the right position regardless. So this usually
Our
works
audience
out.
has arrived.
If the Berserker were not already here, we would be able to move him here using Corrin's lunge skill. But because he's already in the right spot, Corrin can fly past him and then simply attack without
Be
lunging.
all right.
Percy will fly up to help out, but before he moves, Soleil should finish off the general.
We can take these goons.
Nice work.
Justice never loses.
At this position, Percy is able to dual strike against the Berserker. With just the forged bronze axe, he's strong enough to help Keaton secure the kill.
Let's take him out! Only one chance!
I was doing fine on my own.
Next, Midori moves in.
Crossing my
She can use Percy's dual strike again, this time against the adventurer. She has already used her resistance tonic. Now is when that matters, since the two sorcerers are a substantial threat to her. Ordinarily, instead of buying a tonic, we would have been able to pass her one of our vulneraries so she could heal up after promoting. That would also have been sufficient for her to survive.
It's my lucky day! Again! Don't forget me!
Thanks a bunch.
Corrin's lunge skill was one ability that allowed us to neutralize any difficulties with the Berserker's movement, but being as far east as he is has put him in a lot of danger. The other ability that makes this tactic work is Kaze's shelter skill. Kaze has enough range to get past Midori's current position. Even if the Berserker had been southeast or 2 spaces east of where he actually went, and Corrin had been forced to lunge all the way out there, Kaze would still be able to rescue him. Before using shelter, which would end his turn, Kaze can trade with Midori. He makes her equip her javelin to obtain weapon triangle advantage. With Kaze in the way, Percy is now safe,
Handle this.
and Leo can come in too. He has really good resistance and shouldn't fear the sorcerer, at least not if he can be healed by Felicia. Leo takes Corrin, and then normally he would just wait. However, our Kaze is res-blessed to such a degree that even though he can't fight back, the sorcerers would rather attack Midori or Leo than him. To compensate for that, Leo exchanges his fire tome for the horse spirit. That's also the reason why we had to bring a resistance tonic for Midori. By supplying both Leo and Midori with +3 res, we've changed the calculus for the sorcerers back to normal. They should attack Kaze first now.
Shall we?
Felicia double-checks that Midori has the right weapon equipped, and then she heals Leo. Her Democell aura will help protect both Kaze and Leo, but not Midori. The last enemies to deal with on player phase are the Berserker and Strategist up north.
Don't
To weaken the Strategist, we'll first have Flora unequip her weapon so that she doesn't dual strike with Arthur.
Justice.
brace for a chill. No.
Now
holding
Flora
back.
equips her Hunter's Knife. With this, she can provide a lethal dual strike for Nyx.
I won't lose. Maybe I can help. You saved me.
The trouble with this Berserker is that he has 0 dodge. Niles has a modest crit rate already, and that will be raised if he uses Nyx's support due to Nyx's personal tag team bonuses. What we want is for Nyx to pick up the kill with her dual strike so that she'll hit level 20 right on time. The best way to mitigate the crit chance would be to leave the Berserker with just enough HP to survive Niles' first strike even on a crit, but not enough to survive the follow-up from Nyx. Nyx currently has 25 displayed attack with fire. Malefic Aura raises that by 2, and she gets 1 more from Weapon Triangle Advantage at B rank. The total is 28. The Berserker has only 7 resistance.
I won't.
Flora will attack first, and either of her daggers will cut resistance by 3. So after the debuff, Nyx's fire will hit for 28 minus 4, all divided by 2. Half of 24 is 12 points of damage. Lightning, on the other hand, has 2 less might, so 1 less damage per hit when dual striking, but it hits twice, a total of
I
22
can
points.
support you.
The absolute minimum damage that Flora can deal together with Nyx is 15. That's what they do with their 2 weakest weapons. The iron dagger is a little bit stronger.
Are you scared?
Since Niles deals 7 damage with his iron bow before the debuff, he'll hit for 10 afterward. That means it would be best to reduce the Berserker to exactly 31 HP. Just high enough to survive a crit from Niles, but low enough that 10 damage from Niles and 22 from Nyx will also kill. Note that the killer bow has less might, but it deals quadruple damage on a critical hit, so it would crit for 36 instead of 30. Happily, the 15 damage that Flora and Nyx deal together is exactly the right amount. Unless Flora gets a crit, in which case we'll just have to hope that Niles doesn't. Most of these problems could be entirely solved just by using bronze weaponry, but we've already distributed our existing stock of bronze bows and our single bronze dagger to other units, and buying more would cost money. It's a nuisance for sure, having to work out these calculations, but that's the price we pay to save 1,000 gold that might let us have more fun with class changes and A-rank weapons later. Well done, Flora. You sure know how to pick your moments.
Such a tease.
I guess Nyx can just use fire now, for whatever that's worth.
How very annoying. How unfortunate.
Not bad, I guess.
All that effort has earned another level up for Nyx. She's now ready for promotion.
Appearances can be deceiving.
As we hoped, the first sorcerer goes for Kaze. The second one gets to use his companion's dual strike, and because of that, he targets Midori. She survives, and she doesn't quite kill with her counter attack.
I won't allow it.
Once we muscle through these sorcerers, we will have eliminated every enemy between us and Candace. Most of the difficulty and most of the risk we face will be gone. We'd like to move as quickly as we can, though, to get ahead of Candace and clear all the other enemies before we finish the map. Since there are relatively few enemies who are actively engaging us at the moment, this is a great time to pick off the 2 Wyvern Lords. That way they won't be able to harass us later.
I will help you.
Shigure carries Nyx close to the sorcerers. He trades javelins with Midori and gives her the forged bronze lance, and he also transfers Nyx away. Shigure then weakens the healthy sorcerer, the level 11 one, using Midori's support.
Here to save the day. Midori special.
Midori brings Nyx a few steps forward. There, Nyx transfers Midori away before using her Master Seal. Given the choice between Sorcerer and Dark Knight, Nyx usually prefers the latter. Dark Knight has superior mobility, and it gives her some semblance of physical bulk, at least enough to take one hit most of the time. But this is going to be Nyx's last mission, and the only stat she has a reasonable chance to pass down to her daughter is magic, so we're going to maximize that by going for a Sorcerer. It'll be nice to retain access to Nosferatu, too, if only because it's a tool that Nyx can use to avoid killing enemies prematurely.
How very annoying.
Midori has vacated a position that Arthur can now use.
Stand down, fiend!
Before he attacks, he makes Shigure equip the Blessed Lance for some passive healing.
Justice never loses!
Justice Justice reigns!
Kaze is the one person who's going to move backwards
Show
on
me
this
what you
turn.
got.
He has no particular need to be in the fray anymore. This is his last mission too, and we've already gotten his kid, so there's nothing more he can earn. At the end of his short retreat, Midori is able to pass her bronze bow over to Felicia. Felicia can't use it, of course, but Niles sure could. Kaze gives Midori over to Percy so that she can still move forward.
Stand back, citizen!
Percy wants to land on the fort, but we should take care to have Midori drop him so that she gets a chance to trigger Profiteer. Again, we've opened up a position where one of our bow users can attack a sorcerer at 2 range.
I guess
This
I'll
time
save
it's
the
Keaton's
tail.
turn. Using Arthur's support, he's short of a kill by 2 points of damage. But Arthur's bow has 4 more might than Keaton's does, so all they need to do is trade. Doing so will reduce Arthur's damage by 2, but it'll raise Keaton's by 4.
For justice! Never fear!
Thanks, I guess.
Keaton's second level up in Sniper gives him Quick Draw, which will help him reach future kill thresholds more easily. Now we have to figure out what to do against the Wyvern Lords. For the northern one, we'll have Flora act as bait.
I'll watch out.
On her own, she can just barely move far enough to get in range. She won't do any damage unassisted, though, regardless of which dagger she uses. But at least the Iron Dagger is more accurate, since the Hunter's Knife takes a 10-point hit penalty when it's not effective. And if Niles comes along, his dual strikes can certainly deal some damage.
Don't underestimate me.
Felicia runs up to give Niles a more accurate bow. The other Wyvern Lord can be handled by Corrin and Leo.
I can support you.
Leo can go ahead and get the Fire Tome back, though we actually want him to use a sword here, and we'd rather have Corrin use an axe. Soleil is last. Currently, she's completely blocking Candace's path, but we don't want Candace to attack anyone, so Soleil has to move out of the way.
Let's end this with a smile.
Leo can tank this attack fairly comfortably.
Need a hand?
Flora is much less comfortable in the face of a 4% crit rate. That's what you see a lot when you have low luck, you're not paired up, and you're not using a bronze weapon. Niles only needs to make one more attack to reach level 20.
Let's give him hell.
To do that, he first moves away from Felicia, avoiding any extra support points.
Shall we? I'll fight too.
Before we finish off that Wyvern, we'll have Felicia move down to attack the other
Let's
one.
go.
We can handle
Leo
it.
equips a stronger sword so that his dual strike will deal damage.
It'll be fine.
Stay on your toes. Miss.
After the debuff from Felicia's Shuriken, Leo can switch back to the bronze sword.
I'm with you.
Corrin lunges in order to drag the enemy down to ground level, where more of our infantry can reach him.
I'll fight too. More to come.
Reaching C rank in swords is fairly useful for Leo if he's staying in Dark Knight, since the 11th sword is exactly as strong and accurate as Brynhildr is, but it can't crit. Thanks to Corrin's efforts, our archers can attack this Wyvern Lord while still making a bit of forward progress.
In the name of justice!
Don't do anything dumb.
When's my turn?
Now the way is open for Keaton to run up and shoot down the other Wyvern Lord.
See what happens.
Brace for a chill.
Ha!
The units who haven't already been committed to battle should keep going south.
Don't underestimate me.
Flora joins up with Leo. Before he departs, Shigure comes over to rally, healing 5 people at once.
Such a nuisance.
Rather than use his full movement range, Leo moves only 4 spaces, just beyond Nyx. That way Flora can transfer him over, and he'll be able to travel even further in the end. Kaze shelters Flora to get her a little closer. Once he does that, Midori will be able to take and drop her.
Midori can do this.
We want to put Leo on the fort, so Percy moves away. He can block the path behind Candace, while Soleil will be able to block her from the front.
Oh, looky! An enemy! Let's leave no survivors.
The only active enemy is a single berserker coming around from the south, but we won't just sit and wait for him. We'll bring the rest of our forces down the trail, and then we'll burn another path through the woods using a second dragon vein.
We've got this.
Niles takes a stronger sword from Leo for future use. After that, he uses his Master Seal. Both choices for promotion from Outlaw have their merits. The 2 main selling points of Adventurer are its higher magic stat, which makes the Shining Bow more powerful, and the Lucky 7 skill learned at level 5. An accuracy boost, even a temporary one, can be pretty helpful for capturing enemies. That said, I usually prefer the greater physical stats and much better mobility of Bow Knight. A unit with 9 movement is a rare and powerful thing. Even when we're not using Niles for combat roles, the ability to carry and drop people 10 or 11 spaces will be valuable. Access to swords can be moderately useful too. E-rank swords are better than E-rank staves at any rate.
Such a tease.
Leo is the one who will activate the next dragon
Stand
vein.
your toes.
That opens a shortcut for us, but we'll have to ensure that Candace is still forced to go the long way.
Everything will be all right.
Kaze is able to reach the central fort. There, he can take Corrin and switch so that Corrin can have some free healing.
What should we
Felicia
do?
will pair with Midori. When controlling a staff user, we have to be careful not to accidentally heal instead of pairing up. That's one reason why Flora isn't carrying any staves at all. It's a way to limit the possibility of a misclick. Midori is now in considerable danger, obviously, but we can protect her by body blocking. Before we do so, Shigure flies down and rallies again. That rally heals several people, and importantly, it raises Flora's resistance. Keaton catches up to Arthur, who carries him over by Flora. Then he switches, and Keaton transfers Arthur over. Since Arthur is an adventurer, he gives Flora a movement bonus that allows her to run east past her sister.
I'll watch out for you.
Flora exchanges weapons with her twin. After that, she can pass Arthur off, and then use Felicia's dual strike to weaken the nearby sorcerer.
We've got this! I'm over there! I'm not looking for trouble, but...
Finally, Nyx can step in and go for a kill. Occupying the square immediately south of Flora will prevent the next sorcerer from attacking Midori.
Don't underestimate me. Thank you.
Percy and Soleil will just sit tight, continuing to guard Candace.
Adorable outfit. I can support you.
The sorcerer missed. Even if his attack had hit, Counter Curse would not have added enough damage to kill him. For this turn, we need a defense boost rather than a resistance boost to help against physical enemies behind the sorcerer, so Percy flies northeast to provide them. While he's there, since he's not going to need the steel axe against anything else on this mission, he can exchange it for our spare bronze axe.
Appearances can be deceiving.
Nyx will move one square northeast before killing the sorcerer. That way she won't block the southern half of this lane.
Shall we? Enjoy the afterlife. What now?
I believe in
Corrin flies not immediately south of Nyx, but rather 2 spaces south of her, on top of the thick wood. There, he can't reach the Berserker himself, but he is able to provide dual strikes.
I can support you.
Leo goes to the tile east of Corrin, where he can not only exploit Corrin's support in combat, but also access the convoy. He dumped his Iron Sword in favor of the Horse Spirit. It'll turn out in the end that we never used the Levin Sword here, so we actually could have just kept the Horse Spirit in Leo's inventory the whole time. For this particular attack, the Kodachi does an appropriate amount of damage.
Here I am. I can help too.
That's a pretty nice result for Leo.
Let's make this fun.
Niles goes to Leo and makes him equip the Horse Spirit, which will protect Leo from another Berserker further south. For his own part, Niles will equip his Bronze Sword. Raising his sword rank probably won't be all that important, but access to such weapons as the Kodachi or the Armor Slayer may be useful at some point. We'll leave the kill to
Try to
keep.
pull your weight.
Midori will serve to bring him in range. While she's at it, she can trade with Niles to get the bronze bow back. After he transfers Midori away, Keaton can defeat the Berserker with an assist from Niles.
Let's do this together. Don't start without me. Glory Hound.
Keaton is now in range of 2 enemies. One is an adventurer from the north, who will be supported by a Berserker. The other is the level 12 Berserker from the south, who wields a hand axe and will be supported by another Berserker. If all the dual strikes land, Keaton will not survive. We need to give him just a little bit more help defensively. That's something Flora can provide via her Demoiselle skill. Flora takes Midori. We don't want to drop Midori, since that will rob her of her chance to trigger Profiteer. After double checking that Midori has in fact reacquired the bronze bow, Flora simply waits.
All right!
Kaze comes in and takes Midori from Flora. He switches and Midori drops him, not the other way around. Shigure has mainly been teaming up with Midori, but now he gets a chance to partner with Soleil. We'll want to place Soleil at the far west end of the left-hand Berserker's range, with Shigure immediately north of her, flying above the tree. Shigure won't have the greatest accuracy against an enemy with axes, so normally what we would want to do is to move Shigure first, then have Soleil use Rally skill when she's next to him. Unfortunately, our Shigure and our Soleil are both a tiny bit weaker than average. With that method, it won't be good enough to use a bronze dagger and a brass nagina. We have to find some way to improve our damage, and we'd rather not make Shigure wield a stronger lance that will be even less accurate. Luckily, Soleil handily outspeeds the Berserker, 24-20. If we go in the opposite order, with Soleil moving first, then Shigure can use his rally to make her fast enough to double. That means we'll lose out on 6 points of hit on Shigure, but the brass naginata without rally skill is still more accurate than any of his other lances with it, and it also won't have a crit chance.
For cute things everywhere!
I'm with you all the way. All right, come on. Put up a fight! Everything will be just fine. How's this? Oh, why not?
You can see the impact with Demoiselle here. Without it, Keaton would have taken 6 more damage. 2 + 1 + 2 + 1. Certain Blow is a very good skill, or at least a very comforting one. Keaton won't get much mileage out of it, and he won't pass it down to his kid, but we will see it again. The first group of reinforcements consists of 1 elite berserker and 2 regular ones. These are probably intended as a way to make you hurry up, but we're so far ahead of them that I wish we could make them hurry up. It's okay, we'll let them catch us eventually.
You're lucky I'm here.
Percy moves east of Nyx. There, he can support his father against the Northern Berserker. Because Nyx is unusually powerful, we'll want to make an effort to minimize Percy's damage, hence the retrieval of the unforged bronze axe from the convoy. The other purpose of Percy's move is, of course, to rally.
For justice!
Ready for action. Only one chance.
How very annoying.
Percy sandbagged to ensure that Keaton would be able to participate in this kill.
Admit it, you need me. My turn.
You didn't have to do that. Here's hoping we win.
I want to see what happens. I got this. You're hopeless
Keaton
without-
wants to use Nyx's support here. It's slightly unlucky that the Hand-Axe Berserker chose to attack Leo from the southeast. If he had gone due east of Leo instead, then Nyx would be applying Heartseeker to fix her own accuracy. But in the event, this situation illustrates how frustrating a unit Nyx can be. She has weapon triangle advantage at B rank, she's using the equivalent of a bronze weapon, she's in a class that has an innate +5 hit bonus, and she still can't even manage 90% lifted hit on an enemy who's only moderately fast and has terrible luck. I would like her so much more as a unit. She just started with about 8 more base skill.
Your turn, child. Right here!
I was doing fine on my own.
Oh, please.
Nyx's accuracy against the other Berserker is a little better, but it's still not perfect.
Remain calm. How unfortunate!
We'll give the Adventurer kill to Felicia, but that'll happen after we move Flora into position.
We've got trouble.
Felicia trades the Iron Dagger to Flora, since that has the highest accuracy among their 4 weapons. Again, it's unlucky that the enemy isn't adjacent to Nyx.
Don't underestimate me. Ha! Maybe I can help.
Thank you very much. Yes!
Don't worry, we're not going to have Felicia stand alone right in front of a Berserker. Corrin and Leo can intercede.
I'll do what no one else can.
I am at your service.
Time to check in on the kids down south. They need to eliminate the Berserker. If Shigure goes first, then Soleil will be able to train with daggers twice.
Adorable outfit. Bonus round! Bring it on.
Soleil can back up to negate the risk of a counterattack, but there's no need to do that because she doesn't mind doing one more fight with Shigure, support-wise, and the standard tag team hit bonus makes her accuracy perfect.
Adorable outfit.
Everything will be just fine.
Aww.
Lock Touch is useless here, so we won't equip it.
Here I am. We're not done yet.
We lamented the lack of Heartseeker on our last turn. This time, Corrin is able to spend his action applying it to both Berserkers.
No mercy. We won't give up. Need a hand?
We can do this together. No holding back.
We'll use Flora to weaken the right-hand Berserker. It's lovely to see that she won't kill even with a crit.
Whoa, whoa, whoa! Not paying attention?
That kill belongs to Nyx, who may as well use Nosferatu for it. Remember, she has to reach at least level 5 here, and she still has some distance to go.
Don't underestimate me. Phew.
Nyx grew magic again.
What now?
She's 4 for 4 on magic growths in this mission. I guess she really cares about her future daughter's inheritance.
In the
Good for
name
her.
of Justice.
In furtherance of Nyx's quest for levels, we'll have Arthur and Felicia both use Nyx's support against the other Berserker. We just need to do some calculations to confirm that she won't accidentally kill the Berserker with those dual strikes, because we want to save the kill for keep.
You're no match for us!
It'll be fine.
It's team-up time!
Let's leave no survivors. This way.
All right!
Appearances can be deceiving. Stand aside!
Go, go, go!
Champions of Justice!
Keaton has already grown beyond level 8, which was the minimum required for our challenge because he promoted at level 17. However, since we haven't recruited his kid yet, we may still benefit from leveling him up even more.
Let's take him out!
Where's my praise?
Let's go.
I'm not worried.
Right now, we're happy to let Candace move forward, so we don't have to obstruct her path. Instead, Soleil can parachute onto the southeastern fort.
Oh, why not? Are you scared?
Midori just takes one step to the left. That will be a good position from which to receive rallies soon. One of our main tasks for the near future is to bring much of the party back into the passageway east of the central fort. There, they'll intercept the reinforcements, including but not limited to the trio of Berserker.
I can support.
Mio pairs with Corrin, who brings him down near Midori.
Let's go.
Now they're in Shigure's rally area. Kaze rides south as far as he can. He'll obstruct Candace's most direct path to the exit, but she can still go around him. Kaze's minor act of obstruction will make it much easier to trap Candace in this map's final one-tile choke point. Percy and Arthur will not go south. Instead, they'll forge ahead, aiming to draw out the enemy sorcerer.
Evil shall not prevail!
The sorcerers do have a 10% crit rate, and even with the bronze weapon, Arthur has less dodge than that because of his personal skill. However, his son's personal skill totally erases that problem. Flora and Felicia are also northbound. They're pretty good at fighting mages.
Whoa, whoa!
Felicia is especially adept at it because they usually can't even hit her. And this being a shared paralog, the enemies don't mind attacking her anyway.
Let's give them hell.
My power is at your service.
Keaton brings Nyx up to the northern front, and he stands by Arthur to give him even more support.
Adorable outfit. Now I'm in the mix.
Let's take him out! Stand!
The newest enemies are a single level 6 Berserker on the central fort and, over on the northwestern one, a level 12 Paladin with elbow room and a respectable set of weapons, including a javelin. If we move into the passageway to meet the Berserkers, then the Paladin will also crash into us in fairly short order.
I'm not worried. And here's Midori.
Most of our southern squad will stay out of range for this turn. Mainly we're focused on establishing a good formation for action on our next turn, when the Berserkers will all be close at hand.
We won't give up. Let's do this.
Shigure is brave enough to take a hit. At this spot, just inside the Berserker's attack range, he optimizes his own weaponry and then Midori's. He makes her equip the forged bronze lance and also donates his beast killer, which Midori will use later. Up north, we can have Nyx seek a heart to improve Arthur's accuracy.
It's all right.
Flora moves up right outside the range of the second sorcerer, the one who hasn't come after us yet. She'll be able to support Felicia, who can move slightly farther north than she can.
I'll help you.
Felicia cannot be hit. You'll love to see it.
I'll do my best. I'll fight too.
Show me what you've got.
Go, go, go! Too slow.
Such heroism.
For the moment, Keaton's job here is done.
Sure.
He heads back toward the eastern fort, anticipating the arrival of more reinforcements later. But not yet, so Percy can occupy that fort without spawn block. The fort's free healing would be useful if he had actually taken damage earlier. Niles can just stay where he is, and so can Kaze.
Let's go. Are you scared?
I won't fail you. Excuse me. Here's hoping we win. I'll give it a go.
Midori makes the first move, which happens to be another tiny one. This isn't a very important move, the main purpose is just to make sure she's not adjacent to Shigure's current position anymore.
Good luck. I'm here to help.
Not done yet!
Shigure flies up north of Corrin and equips his Blessed Lance before he rallies. If he hadn't dodged the Berserker, he'd be very low on HP now, and the Blessed Lance's passive healing would be crucial. With the benefit of Shigure's rally, Corrin can double the regular Berserkers, but not their captain.
Don't give up.
Corrin moves on to the final Dragon Vein, which he will use to open an alternate path to the north. This new path is important to us because it lets our ground forces maneuver up and down the eastern side of the map, and yet also lets us keep Candace trapped in the choke point at the same time.
I can help.
Soleil kills the wounded Berserker from point-blank range.
Such a nuisance.
Game over, buddy.
That move puts Soleil in reach of only the level 12 Berserker. And because Midori is not adjacent, she's guaranteed to use Leo's Dual Strike for her counterattack. Percy comes in to deliver Rally Defense. Niles and Kaze can work together to surround Candace.
I'm with you.
How very annoying.
Nyx joins up with Keaton. Eventually she'll make her way over to Candace. In the meantime, knowing that another enemy is about to spawn on the fort, we can drop Nyx nearby to wait for him.
Yeah, I got you.
Flora moves down with Arthur because they'll both want to get involved in the fight against the Berserkers. Felicia can handle the Sorcerer just fine on her own.
We can do this together.
Felicia steps just one space to the southeast. She's keeping him away from the rest of the team by exploiting the fact that when he moves to attack her, he won't go farther than he has to. But she cedes a little bit of ground because she also wants to be slightly closer to everyone else.
It'll be fine. We can do this together.
Good luck. Miss. What are you waiting for? Concentrate.
The third Berserker is Body Block. All he can do is move closer and wait. Not only do we have the Paladin approaching, we now have to deal with a Sorcerer from the south and an Adventurer from the east. We're ready for the Adventurer, at least. Felicia moves first, stopping opposite Nyx. Occupying this square prevents the Sorcerer from attacking Nyx through the trees. From here, Felicia would ordinarily cast Physic on Shigure, since Shigure would typically be very low on HP right now, and he needs to be healthy for his upcoming tasks on enemy phase. But Shigure dodged the Berserker earlier, so that's not necessary. Felicia would still appreciate the experience from using her staff, though, so she'll cast it on someone else.
You're no match for us!
We can take these goons! Too slow, chump!
When's my turn?
It's all right.
You'll be all right. Let me try. Stay on your toes.
Now it's Leo's duty to spend his entire turn applying Heartseeker.
I'll protect you. Good luck. Mistake.
You're lucky I'm here.
Percy flies 2 spaces west of Leo, and after equipping his hand axe so that he can counter the paladin's javelin, he just waits. He's here to support Shigure.
My heart is singing.
You've got an ace in the hole! Bam!
Thanks for backing me up.
The paladin will see that both Shigure and Percy can counterattack him no matter what weapon he wields, so he should just try to maximize damage. That means we expect him to use his steel lance to attack Shigure, who is far less bulky than Percy is. Even though he outspeeds Percy and Percy's using a weapon that makes him vulnerable to follow-ups, the paladin still can't double Percy because all of his weapons have their own effective speed penalty. We can use Kaze to accelerate Arthur's training, sheltering him so that he can kill a second berserker on this turn.
Let's end this with a smile. I can help.
Evil has met its match!
Midori takes up Kaze's post guarding Candace.
Let's give him hell.
Nyx will attack the adventurer on the forge first. To keep all the support points in line, she should only do 1 more round of combat together with Keaton, not 2. So when Keaton makes his attack, he'll move away.
Don't do anything dumb. I call Alpha. If you die on me, I'll kill you. Fresh meat is the best.
We can take these goons! Only one chance!
It's showtime!
We'll move our team back a few spaces as we turn to fight the southern sorcerer. Percy and Shigure will guard our left flank, keeping the paladin away from everyone else. While they prepare for that, they can also rally.
I'm here to help.
We're placing Corrin on the southwest to northeast diagonal near the sorcerer. From there, he can support 2 separate teammates while they attack the sorcerer at melee range. Fire is his most reliable weapon to use, particularly when we haven't applied Heartseeker.
Don't worry.
Leo now takes the most distant position between Corrin and the enemy.
You'll be all right. Need a hand?
Don't underestimate me.
With Leo applying Heartseeker, we can have Corrin work on his axe rank again. Flora takes 0 damage because the sorcerer's magic has been sealed by Leo.
got this. Let me try.
Arthur gets to claim yet another kill.
Strength.
Let's end this with a smile.
Taste justice!
Mighty Midori!
Midori liberates Soleil. The two of them both have more combat ahead of them. Kaze does not, so he can go back to Candace.
Remain calm.
Stand back, citizen!
On this turn, Percy is able to rally for Shigure, limiting the damage he'll take from the Paladin. Keaton would double and kill this Paladin if the Paladin were to use his Javelin, so Keaton can stand at the end of his range without being attacked.
We've got this!
Felicia uses Keaton's support to wound that sorcerer badly. That will set up another kill for Nyx.
Try to pull your weight. I got this.
Don't die on me. Not yet. Whoa, whoa, whoa! Another day, another sin.
Oh, that look.
We can take these goons!
Since the Paladin is level 12, if we let Arthur take the kill, he will earn enough experience to level up. So that's what we'll do. Corrin moves over to apply Heartseeker, and Midori equips the Beast Killer. After that, Arthur can go for it.
I won't let you down.
Now I'm in the mix. My turn!
Such heroism.
Congratulations on your retirement, Arthur. You may be a terribly unlucky guy, but you were an absolute champion early in the campaign. We couldn't have done it without you. In truth, Arthur has become a rather lackluster unit. His stat line as a whole is subpar. He has pretty good growth rates outside of luck, but his starting stats were mostly carried by the basis of the fighter class. Adventurer is much weaker physically than the fighter class tree, but you would still hope for a level 25 unit to have a bit more than 19 strength, 21 speed, and 13 defense. That said, Arthur has been a lot of fun to use. Making him an outlaw is just so amusing from a character standpoint. And even though he hasn't been strong in that class, he has managed to be fairly effective. Now that he has Lucky 7, he could return to his glory days just by changing to Berserker. He wouldn't be the most powerful Berserker in the game, but he would be a strong and very mobile infantryman who provides great pair bonuses. Kaze is retiring too, and overall, yes, I would say he has been a more important and a much more consistently useful part of the team than Arthur. That might say more about the strength of the ninja class than about Kaze in particular, but Kaze's speed and resistance and relatively good HP have helped him to make the most of his classes.
I will help you.
As I mentioned before, Nyx is going to start fighting Candace. To make her way over there, she first joins up with Keaton. Before Keaton goes anywhere, Soleil rallies to improve Nyx's accuracy.
Yeah.
Now Keaton transfers Nyx to Percy. Percy is the one who will actually bring Nyx to Candace. Conveniently, Percy and Nyx don't support each other, so it doesn't matter how many times they battle together.
So strong.
While carrying Leo, Shigure stops 2 tiles west of the fort here, and then he equips the Blessed Lens. At this position, he can rally for Soleil, and someone else can take Leo to drop him onto the fort. We could have had Chigure move earlier to rally for Nyx as well, but we didn't want to give Nyx any more speed because we'd rather she didn't double Candace.
Oh, please.
Let's take him out!
Nyx will attack Candace now, and then also a second time on our next turn. But there's a certain threshold to consider. Across those two turns, we want to deal at most 26 damage. Nosferatu hits for 16, so even if Nyx switches to fire for the second attack, she'll deal at least 28 damage in total. That's too much. So Nosferatu is completely off the table. Nyx must use fire and only fire. Normally, when Nyx isn't incredibly magic blessed, we want the extra damage from Nosferatu at least once. And because Nosferatu can't follow up, we wouldn't usually have had to care about avoiding rally speed from Shigure. But when we're forced to use fire, that actually matters.
It's my lucky day! Again!
I can support you. Are we ready? Okay, let's go.
Leave it to me.
The final group of reinforcements is a trio of sorcerers from the northeast. We fought there like before. Nyx goes over to Midori. We'd rather not stick Percy with pair-up duty any longer. Midori can take over.
Just keep on smiling.
If you die on me, I'll kill you.
Midori won't be seeing any more combat here, so Keaton takes her unforged bronze bow.
Now I'm in the mix. Crossing my fingers.
No
Like
hesitation.
Percy, Kaze is a mounted unit who can now be put to better use than just standing around near cannon.
I'm here to help.
I'll do my best.
Flora is done with combat as well, so she hands all her weapons over to Felicia. Felicia walks north exactly 5 spaces, not quite her full movement range. Doing so puts her in reach of all 3 sorcerers, but in a way that will help to control their movement very strictly. If we did nothing else right now, then the sorcerer on the left, the level 12 one, would attack Felicia from the north at 2 range. Thus he would body block the right-hand sorcerer. We don't want that to happen, so we have to lure the elite sorcerer elsewhere. We can achieve that by placing an alternative target southwest of Felicia.
Don't worry. Oh, that look. have your back.
Shigure rallies to boost res and speed. Finally, Arthur takes over guard duty.
Justice!
Oh, why not? Let me get it first.
Now the middle sorcerer attacks Felicia at melee range because he wants to use his ally's dual strike.
Was I helpful? I won't lose. Happy to help.
We'll kick off this turn by having Shigure rally again. The tiny bit of healing he's providing to Leo can make a difference.
All right, come on.
Niles pairs up with Leo to protect him from dual strikes this time.
Let's give it hell. Back off.
Nyx has done what she needs to do with Candace. She has earned 20 experience points by attacking Candace twice. Now we'll bring her north to battle the sorcerers.
Ready for action!
Nyx swaps Percy for Niles to acquire some extra guard gauge points and to generate more support points with her future husband.
Let's make this fun.
I don't need your forgiveness. Appearances can be deceiving.
I'll help you.
Felicia trades with Nyx to make her equip Fire again so that she can double the other two sorcerers. Nyx used Nosferatu in the first place because sometimes the HP recovery mattered. Obviously it didn't this time because Nyx was already at full HP.
I'll do my best. Was I helpful? That was good.
In order to extract Leo, Corrin first separates Percy from him.
Remain calm.
Now Kaze can shelter Leo.
Don't do anything dumb.
For the time being, Soleil occupies the fort. We actually want Candace to
I'm
go
not
there,
worried.
but she can't quite reach it right now, so it's no problem for Soleil to stay there for a turn. When an enemy is badly wounded, I think the trigger is under 50% HP, and they have the ability to retreat to a healing tile or a teammate with a healing staff, they will try to do so, unless their scripting tells them not to. That behavior ends once they heal back to 75% HP or higher. At that point, they'll continue with their usual activities. We want Candace to spend 2 turns healing herself on the fort, and each turn will restore 20% of her HP, or 8 points. The 75% threshold for her is 30 HP. That's why we wanted Nyx to deal 26 damage or less. She had to leave Candace with at least 14 hit points, since 14 plus 8 plus 8 is 30. That said, if Candace were to spend an extra turn healing, it wouldn't be the end of the world. We'd just finish this mission 1 turn slower, that's all.
You're no match for us!
Usually this is an occasion where Counter Curse can actually achieve something, but our Nyx is so powerful that she would have been able to kill even without it. Another day, another sin. Now Nyx's guard gauge is full, so she's safe from the second sorcerer.
Back off!
Fate is cruel.
6 for 6 on magic roads. Incredible. Countercurse theoretically could have had a moment to shine, but actually it wouldn't have mattered anyway. Nyx essentially has a free turn right now. If the sorcerer had missed her and thereby avoided Countercurse, and Nyx hadn't been able to kill him because of that, she would be able to finish him off now.
I'll protect you.
Oh, looky! An enemy! Here to save the day!
Midori drops Soleil just beyond the reach of the stationary generals on the northeastern forts. That's a place where Soleil can provide a lot of dual strikes.
No hesitation.
Okay, let's go.
You're hopeless without me.
Keaton is the one who will help build up Soleil's dagger rank. The fact that he heals himself over time is very convenient.
For cute things everywhere! Die already!
This ends here.
It'll be important to heal up Leo and especially Soleil a little bit, so Shigure does just that.
Champions of justice!
Percy wants to rally for Keaton, but he shouldn't be adjacent to Keaton, or else Keaton might use his dual strike instead of Soleil.
You have my support.
I can protect you. I can. Sorry!
Keaton has achieved D rank in bows. That will not be useful, except insofar as it lets others use the bronze bows. On this turn, Shigure and Percy both rally again to assist Soleil and Keaton. Other than that, things are really winding down now. We're just going to beat up the generals a few times as we wait for Candace to approach.
I can help. Hey, over here!
Oh, please. Here I am. Don't worry.
This is our 4th round of combat with this general. The next round will be the last time we can earn any weapon experience from him. When we go to finish off that general, we will get Percy involved. He moves closer and equips his hammer. Soleil goes to Keaton's east side to make her own attack. That move allows her to continue supporting Keaton when he engages the other general.
Sure, why not? My turn. Yeah, I got you.
Remain calm.
Nyx doesn't have to worry about her own accuracy for this kill because Percy's dual strike is sufficient.
Champions of justice!
so strong.
Candace will start moving again soon, so Felicia and Leo array themselves near her next destination.
We can handle this.
Bring it on. Bonus round.
All this extra fighting has raised Keaton to level 11, 3 levels higher than required. Hopefully that translates into some additional bonuses for his daughter. This should be our last turn. We'll take out the general first, and then we'll finally tackle Candace. Against the general, the plan is to have Keaton attack first, then Soleil, and then to have Percy chip him again using Soleil's dual strike. Those attacks will give Soleil the weapon experience points she needs to reach D rank in daggers. Now, I did notice that Soleil only has 15 HP right now, and the general deals 15 damage to her. We ought to do something about that. Leaving that problem aside, we should also check how much damage we're doing. We'd like to end things the same way we did against the previous general. We want Nyx to take the kill, but Percy's dual strike is what should land the finishing blow, and we don't want to depend on Nyx's accuracy at all.
Sure, why not?
Our stats work out such that Keaton's best choice is to use the unforged bronze bow first.
Let's do this as a team. Sorry. Just keep
And
on
for Soleil's attack, we should switch Keaton back to the forged bronze bow. And now we have a problem. Oops. We've already committed Soleil's action by trading with Keaton, but we still want her to be able to attack the general, and she can't afford to do that right now. So we have to find a way to end her turn that will preserve her ability to attack. The solution? Just pair up. If Soleil pairs with Keaton, then someone else, someone who can provide a defense bonus or someone female who can activate Sisterhood, can take Soleil and switch back to her.
I'll cover
This
you.
mistake has cost Keaton the chance to dual strike for Soleil. But that's okay. Because we've been so obsessive about maximizing experience, we have a margin of safety. Keaton doesn't need that dual strike to achieve anything. He has already leveled up for the last time, and he has no further use for weapon experience either.
Who's scared? Not me.
Because she's not dealing any damage, we've also lost out on some experience for Soleil. It's less clear whether that will matter, but it probably won't. There's a good chance it comes out in the wash at some point due to the way experience scales in this game.
Justice never loses! You've got an ace in the hole!
I'm not worried. Bonus round! Don't die on me. Not yet.
The last and perhaps most unfortunate consequence is that we do need Nyx's attack to hit now.
Ready for action!
You saved me.
I am very proud, and also a little bit astonished, to report that Nyx has hit 2 70% and then 5 75% magic growth chances in a row. She has beaten her average in magic by 4 points. What a way to finish a career.
I have your back.
Shigure flies down to rally for Leo and to apply Voice of Peace. He definitely should have rallied for Soleil instead. We'll have Leo attack Candace now, building support with Niles while he's at it.
Let's do this together. Take this!
What should we do?
Felicia gets to team up with Leo again.
I'll fight too. We're not done yet!
Remain calm.
If Kaze shelters Felicia, and then Flora takes her from Kaze, then Felicia will get to attack again, earning support points with Flora and with Leo.
I'll watch out for you.
We want to deal damage but not kill, and that means we should use the Steel Shuriken. Let's hope Felicia doesn't get 2 crits in a row.
I can support you.
Oh, please.
At last, Niles swoops in for the capture.
No hesitation.
Can't.
We have no immediate plans for the dragon herbs. We'll hold on to those and see who needs them later. Despite my best efforts to blow it right at the end, that counts as another successful mission. We trained up Keaton, we trained up Arthur, we trained up Nyx, and we're ready to move on. Because we focused on our first generation units, we didn't use our 2 newest recruits all that much, but we can anticipate big things for Shigure and Midori in the future.
Glad that's over.
Don't scare me like that.
But I just...
Huh?
Well, the fact is...
Midori. Here.
Huh?
Of course.
These last 2 paralogs have been something of a training session, an opportunity to get our weakest units up to speed. As we continue marching back into Hoshido, our journey will take us deeper into the woods, where our next challenge will not be so easy. See you there.